If you're, at a bar and you meet a cute person and you want to get to know them, you're probably not going to invite them for a weekend away at the first step. You probably just want to maybe coffee, something with an out, something with something quick. So maybe instead of saying, oh, we just need 2 hours of your time and it's got to be Wednesday, December 17th, the better, I think, the more palatable approach for somebody who is as inundated with requests as we are is to say, we have this information and, would a 10, 15-minute call be possible with you? Another thing that happens a lot is people contact me, usually through phone calls, but sometimes through email, and say that they just had the most brilliant idea in the world that we could raise money at the check stand for them. Whereas we've been raising money at the check stand for over 30 years for various different charities. And I get a lot of people thinking that this is a new and brilliant idea. So again, this kind of goes back to research. Find out what they've been doing. A new and brilliant idea might be, we want to raise money at the check stand and we have this most amazing app that will help you, or some other element to it that's not, similar to the same thing we've been doing. And then again, asking to marry at first sight. Again, you just met somebody at the bar. You just met somebody out at, at a group event or at a party, and asking them to marry you. Please, if you just give us $10 million today, all of our troubles would go away. I think that may be the very best charity and maybe the very best partner we could ever hope for. However, it's more difficult to get to the next step when when they've jumped the gun. Moving on to then, you get to the first date. So one of the most embarrassing meetings that I've ever had is the first meeting, and I will keep names to myself to protect the guilty. They came in and they happened to know somebody, so that person came in with them, and they sat down and said, we had just started launching something on our hunger campaign. They told us that they should be our partner for the hunger campaign. They actually are a group that doesn't do anything in the hunger space at all, has no experience. And they came in, and before they came, they sent 2 overnight packages full of just so many material. I don't think if I read them from the time that I received them to the time that they arrived, I would have been able to finish. Books and pamphlets and papers and papers and papers. And then when I got to the meeting, there was another tall stack of papers for me to go through. And they said, all right, we're going to be your partner, and if you just will give us the first 100 million that you raise, we'll do a great job. And then, believe it or not, the one of the people who was the head of the organization stood up, pointed to another woman who had been sitting in the corner pretty quietly for the most of the time, pointed to her and said, and I think you should hire my daughter to run this campaign for you. That was probably one of the most embarrassing first meetings I have ever had, mostly because it puts me, frankly, in such an awkward position. I'm not sure. I didn't even know what to say after that. So, and by the way, they had scheduled the meeting for half an hour, and they only got through their presentation, and it was at least an hour and a half by the time they had got through their presentation. So it wasn't respectful of time. It was pretty presumptuous. They're asking to go all the way at the very first meeting, and it was material overload, just absolute overload. In contrast, one of the best initial meetings I've ever had, again, they came in with an internal advocate. The internal advocate happened to be somebody who works at our stores. They came in, they sat down, and they had a one sheet that they gave me that kind of was a quick read that highlighted some of the things that they did. They sat down. The person in charge of the organization introduced the the Safeway employee to me. And then the Safeway employee then talked about how important this organization had been in her life. It was an organization that dealt with veterans. She was one of the veterans in our veterans program we had hired. And the organization told us all about the employee told us all about how great this organization had been, how it helped her to become a better employee, how some of her other fellow veteran employees had also got into this organization, and how she had seen great changes in them and great strides in their ability to cope with civilian life, and how important it was for this organization was for them to be great, productive employees at Safeway. So what's great about that by the time the woman who ran the organization began to speak, it was already, we were already on to, okay, let's get to the dating phase. I wasn't trying to run out on the coffee as quickly as I was on the first example. And what was great about it is she made it personal. It was very personal. This woman told, and always, a heartfelt story is great, told a heartfelt story, but it was real, it was true, and it told us how it aligns with our goals to have better employees, our goals to be better in the community, our goals to hire as many veterans in the community, how this particular organization helped her to keep her job at Safeway and helped her to continue to work through some of the issues she had with post-traumatic stress syndrome and getting into civilian life. And then the very best thing that the woman who ran the organization did is she gave me about a maybe 2 or 3 minute overview about her organization. And then she turned around, she said, but I want to hear about what you do with veterans and how we can help you. And she listened. She wanted to know about what we do, about how we do it, so that she did not come in with a proposal. She didn't have to go all the way. She said, let me understand what you need and what I do and see how those two things fit together. That to me was the perfect first date. So with that kind of a group, the next step is to go on to dating. Now, I always think about dating, and job interviews and kind of courting a corporate funder are all a little bit similar. You get you get the initial butterflies, if you will, when you meet somebody. You think, oh, this could be great. You start seeing the future with them, but you have to take it slow, and then you call them and you hope they call you back. And if they call you back with good news, then you can move on to the next step. So what I always think about the dating is a little bit like a job interview, and it really truly is. It's a bit of an interview to figure out how we can work together, because we need to trust the organization we work with. One thing about corporate funders is we do have a brand that we have to maintain for our corporation, for our for-profit brand. And that brand, we have to really trust the organizations we're working with to make sure that we're working together. So if you think of it like a job interview, some of it goes, small gestures go a long way. So after that initial date, a follow-up email is great, especially a follow-up email that is personal. In my example of the very best first date, the follow-up email actually came from the employee. It said she was so thankful of our time, and she was so thankful that we could spend the time together and she could share the organization about the organization. And then she also said that she was so proud working at Safeway because of what the Safeway Foundation does and how we can help out our neighborhoods, because that's really why the Safeway Foundation exists. We exist to help out the neighborhoods. We want to make our neighborhoods a better place. And so we're looking for partners who can help us do that. Another good thing that often happens is a personal letter from someone helped by the organization. It always helps if somebody helps as a kid. I have an entire drawer. I keep every single one of the kids' drawings, letters, cards that I ever get from all the organizations that we help or that we've met with them, because that always shows that there is a connection with the neighborhood, that connection with the people who are being helped, and a connection with us. And that maybe I'm just an emotional sap, but I love having that personal connection and understanding exactly how, if we go forward with this partnership, who's going to be helped and how are they going to be helped. Again, listening to what's going on in the dating stage as, you know, we're talking and meeting and trying to figure out another time to meet, etc. Listen to what's going on at the organization. Here's a big one. Sometimes the meeting goes well, but it just doesn't fit with our priorities. I am well known for being very honest and sometimes blunt, but I am on purpose, and mostly because I've been on the other side. On the other side, I always felt like I was seeking a no. Until I got a firm no, I felt like I needed to keep pushing because it could be a yes. I have talked to a lot of other corporate foundations and people who run them, and most of us feel that if we say no, we're going to say no, and that no is a true no. If we say no, it does mean no. We really respect the resources that you put into a lot of this and dedication you put into trying to cultivate this relationship. Those resources, if this relationship isn't going to go anywhere, we don't want you to spend those resources on trying to continue this. Those resources are much better spent. You're all doing such great work in our communities, and we want you to use as many of those resources as possible to do that. And kind of hand in hand with that is becoming a stalker. Don't become a stalker. Once no is no. I have a gentleman who calls every the first Monday of the month. He calls and he has a great idea. It's the same exact great idea every single Monday. And every single month, he calls and says, you should reevaluate. Now, I answer every single email and I return every single phone call that I receive. So that's part of what I do. And so every single month I get to talk to this gentleman, and I usually make sure that I have my tea set and I'm ready to go because I know that it's going to be a minimum of a 45-minute call of him berating me for not taking his idea. So no means no. Becoming a stalker, even if his organization was the very best thing since sliced bread, I don't think I could ever support it because of his actions and his frankly disregard for any respect of my time or my decisions. Then making a first step commitment, starting with a small project to test how we could live together. So after you date for a while, then sometimes we like to kind of dip our toes in at first. Again, we're trying to manage a brand. So making this first step commitment to make sure that we can work together in dating life. Often that means it's because you're trying to live together. And so, starting with some kind of a small project, a couple of ideas, an employee volunteer opportunity. Sometimes we'll do things like that. There are a lot of team building activities that our various different groups like to do. I keep a binder of team building options for them. So when they come to me and say, hey, we want to do a team building activity for our sourcing team, and we want to do some kind of volunteer work, I have a binder and we go through and we try to align the various jobs. Once that happens, you've got internal advocates after that, because if you get a whole bunch of people volunteering, odds are that at least one of them is going to truly believe in your mission and will continue to bring that forward. Another way we try to start a little bit of a first step commitment is the small scale project with defined objectives. Very defined objectives, very small scale, a defined amount of time so that we can measure objectives, because not only is your mission important, but how you go about that mission is incredibly important to us. Again, as we are trying to, we have goals as well, and as we manage our brand, excuse me. Another is just kind of a tip is to consider the company's needs and put together a defined proposal. As you are listening to us and we say, I have so many groups that need volunteer time, or maybe it's we're trying to figure out how to really reach out into the veterans community, or maybe it's we're looking at our cancer research and trying to find a way to get the cancer research more into the areas where we have stores. Whatever it is that our company's needs might be, listening to that and then putting that into defined proposal is helpful. And then I can't underscale enough. We've done a lot of first step commitments, or I've seen a lot of first step commitment proposals. And the one thing that I would say that is the most common mistake is whatever their proposal is often not scalable. Whatever resources you're going to put towards a small proposal should be resources that could scale as more money gets infused into it. So therefore, if you're telling me that for $1,000 you can feed 500,000 kids, and for $1 million you can feed 1 million kids, then that's not a scalable. I need to see how this works, and then how to be. And I know it's not going to be necessarily a linear equation. However, the scalability of it is important, and the organization must be able to scale it and have the resources to be able to put as much resources towards the small test as they would be able to put towards the larger test. Many proposals I see have all resources focused on this small test, where then I think, well, how could it be that you could actually roll this out across our geographic area? I would like to ask for patience as we make first step commitments. Patience is a gift that you can give to us. We don't necessarily move very quickly on these. Sometimes just the timing needs to be right. Again, a lot like dating. If you're with somebody and sometimes the timing is just not right. Sometimes you need to be patient. Sometimes you need to wait for them to work through some other things. And that happens with us as well. And then again, I'm saying this a couple times, but managing resources is incredibly important, and managing resources wisely is of the utmost importance. All right, now you're on to step 5. You're at the big discussion. This is that big discussion that you kind of say, if you ask a friend, hey, do you think you and Joe are going to get married? And they say, well, we've been talking about it. That's the big discussion when you start talking about marriage. Joint rights and responsibilities. Start talking about what it's going to look like. It's always advisable to discuss child raising and parenting practice prior to considering having a child together. So I don't know if I've said it enough. I've said it. I think I put it in absolutely every single slide. And that is listen to the company. Listen to what they're doing. Listen to what their goals are. The more you listen, the more you can tailor your proposal so that it just makes sense for them. Is the company ready for marriage? Maybe they're not. Maybe they've got other things going on. Are they even the marrying type? Do they do large projects like this? Is this going to be something completely new? Is there anyone else that they're seeing as well? Listening to the company and trying to find out whether or not your proposal is coming at the right time will be the very most important step, I think, in getting to that big proposal. Because if you're listening and you understand the timing is right, they're ready for it, they're almost even asking for it, that's the time to get the proposal in. So let's say that we're starting to talk about marriage, and now it's time to move on to the big ask. This is the proposal. So here's a couple of tips about those proposals from what I've seen. And again, I do all this, and I hope you're taking all of this in the spirit of I wish somebody had shared with me what it was like to be on the other side as well. So it's not personal. The proposal, getting up to the level of the proposal, a lot of that is, frankly, some of it is emotionally driven. A lot of it is fit with the company's goals and everything else. Once you get to the proposal, it's business. Make sure that all of your paperwork is in order. Please make sure that everything you have. I've worked with a group that I thought was fantastic, and we were looking at doing a small scale thing and then actually helping them to grow into a national organization. And when we finally got down to the proposal, we found out that something as basic as their 501c3 filing hadn't been done. So make sure all of your paperwork is in order. Now, that's a very basic place, but even in the proposal, the proposal is if you're going to propose to somebody, I was very lucky. My husband is amazing and proposed to me on a beach in Mexico with some music playing, etc. It was the most beautiful proposal ever, and he had done a lot of effort in thinking into it. And so similarly, when you do this, it's business. We make sure that all of the I's are dotted and T's are crossed. but make it personal too. So it has to make sense to us. I've also worked with some organizations and we've gotten all the way up to the proposal, and then they do a left turn and they start talking about some other portion of their business that we have that has nothing to do with anything that we've talked about, has nothing to do with our goals, etc. Make it personal, make it make sense, make it make sense to us. Make sure that you clearly outline how this proposal will help us as well as help you in your efforts. And then it's always great to use a sounding board first, because people are busy and there's a lot going on. And so if you can, a lower level person at the company, a lower level person or your advocate, talk to them, make sure that use them as a sounding board, make your proposal make sense. And then finally, schedule a time and make clear your intentions. I think a lot of us are very busy, and I've gone into many meetings where there was the proposal, and I didn't know it was coming, and that often puts me in a bit of an awkward spot. So schedule a time, make sure it's clear, make sure they know, okay, we've been listening to you, we've heard what you're doing, we think there's an amazing fit, we did this little project together, we want to talk to you about expanding it. And I want to be clear, I want an hour of your time, and in that hour I want to let you know I'm going to give you a proposal. I'm going to give you a proposal on how we can scale this. Make sure that we know what we're stepping into so that we can do our research ahead of time as well. Now, a few things about the proposal itself. I think I've said this again on every single slide, listening and making sure make it clear that you've heard the company's needs. Position your organization as someone who can help with these companies' needs. Remind the company of why you share a passion. So in my earlier example of the best first date, remind us why we care about veterans, because we hire a lot of veterans into our stores, and we care because we want to make sure that those veterans can lead the most amazing and productive lives that they can, and as does the organization. So remind us of why we have that shared passion. I can't tell you how many proposals I receive that don't do this. I'm sure most of you do, but clear writing, compelling data, and transparency. I can't tell you how many proposals I've received that will show me a budget for the organization, but not a budget for the proposal, and they won't give it to, even when I ask for it, sometimes I won't get it. I also, having written a lot of grants and proposals in my time, I know you have a boilerplate of information that you okay, your needs assessment, throw in here and this there. Please try and read that. I have received proposals for Target at Safeway or for Walmart at Safeway. Just make sure that you've gone through and made sure that your proposal is clear, that it's just like your resume, just like you would if you were going to try for a job. Provide a believable budget conversion, provide clear milestones. And this last point is really about considering sustainability. That's one of the big things that we're always looking for. My foundation is a little bit different than others in that we rely almost completely on outside funding for what we do. Other organizations rely maybe on a stock gift or other things. But in all cases, we're not sure where the funding will go. We're not sure who will be our next CEO. We're not sure what the company's culture will go, what our priorities might go. There are a lot of things that change, and changes happen. And so one of the things I'm always concerned about is I would hate to start a proposal if there was no plan for any kind of sustainability moving after. We're actually in the midst of one with an organization that we had funded for a long time, and we've been kind of talking to them about finding other revenue sources, and they haven't done it. We've been talking to them for at least 5 years about finding other revenue sources, and now we're at the point where we're about to cut off our relationship with them. And they're panicking because they haven't found any other revenue streams, and that means that puts us in an awful place, because that means that we then have to worry about how how those people are going to be helped moving forward. So sustainability is a really big thing. I hope these 6 steps are helpful, and at least a little bit engaging. These are not all steps are taken in every instance. Sometimes you're lucky enough that you move straight onto the proposal. Sometimes you can skip the dating phase. Sometimes other things happen, but I'm hopeful that some of these help. And again, I hope that this is taken all in the spirit of I wish somebody had told me some of these things when I was on the other side as to what it is like to sit on the other side of the table. So if any of you have any nuptials, impending nuptials, or if you use any of this advice, my contact data is below, and Amy can always provide, I'm sure, my email, which is probably the best way actually to reach me on. But be sure to send me an invitation. Let me know what you do. I am an avid consumer of what's happening in the nonprofit world and all of the various different relationships and things that happen, and I love to hear about success stories. So please do let me know what's going on, and especially if you're able to use any of this. Because as I give this presentation and fine tune it, I always like to make sure that the information is useful and helpful. So I hope that helps. I'm going to go ahead and pause sharing here.
We can see your desktop.
And give it back to Amy.
Okay. Are you able to hear me?
Oh, yes, okay. I am.
Can hear me. Okay. So, Christy, thank you so much. I do have a question for you. Here, a question just popped up. It says, what tips do you have for organizations that solicit general operating funds from corporate sponsors with the same supporters year after year?
So there's 2 questions there, I think. What tips do you have for organizations that solicit general operating funds from corporate sponsors? And then the question is, how do you sustain the relationship year after year? So the first question is, when asking for general operating funds, that is another kind of level of partnership beyond what some funders do. We actually at the Safeway Foundation, we do quite a bit of general operating funding because we understand how much the business of an organization costs. But that requires a very deep and true relationship between 2 organizations and a lot of trust, because we're basically there's no typically no project goals set out. So I think that if you're seeking specifically general operating funds, then I think that's where you really need to build up the trust, and you need to really build up the case study for the organization as a whole, not just for any particular project. And then as far as working with the same organization year after year, I think it's maybe it's the next blog is about how to sustain the marriage, because it's similar to marriage where it definitely takes work. Communication is great. Having somebody that we can contact, and that person being fantastic and being able to answer our questions quickly is important. And also meeting one of the best groups that we work with on a regular basis that I really enjoy working with is one that sits down with us every quarterly or every 6 months, and we sit down and we talk about what they're doing, how things are going, and they're very honest with us about how things are going. And then we talk about what their goals are. Now, we never actually try to influence the goals, but we talk about what we can expect from the next let's say 6 months, and they'll let us know what their goals are, and then how we can track to those goals. And then they also try, and I think this is also key, if there's any way to try and make sure that the corporation is getting some credit for what the organization is doing. It's a little bit harder when it's operating funds, but if there's a way that you can say your dollars have allowed us to do X or Y, then that really helps to continue the relationship, because we often have to sell it upwards as well. In fact, this morning I was asked by our CEO to put together a quick presentation for some of the new senior leadership at our company that basically gives a case study of why we should sponsor a lot of these organizations that we're sponsoring and where does our money go and what does it do. Those organizations that can help us to understand that will always help out a lot. And do you want me to take this one from Olivia?
Oh, perfect. Yes. You can see it too. Thanks, Olivia.
Olivia says, scroll down. Olivia says she liked the advocate story about the personal connection. I think that was a first date story. Is there a level of employee they are more likely to respond to as a foundation executive director? Okay, so, and I'll read the second part. So I like to respond. I respond to every single employee who has an organization that they want to bring forth to me. I meet with every single organization that they bring forth. However, I will say that a higher level employee does tend to get, and it's unfortunate, and I wish it wasn't this way, but the higher level the employee, the more notice that employee can get. For example, a store employee doesn't have as much access to me. I work in the corporate office on the executive floor, and I don't even think they have access into our building, let alone into our area. And so they have less access, whereas somebody who's on the executive floor works four doors down from me, I see every day, and he comes in, he just walks in, and he sits down in my office and says, I've got this great organization. They have a little bit more access, and so the more the higher up, unfortunately, does tend to matter. However, for a lot of us, and we have programs that actually try to ensure that all employees have the chance to bring forth an organization, even outside of the Northern California area. And so we try very hard to make sure that all level of employees, but I must be honest and say that higher level employees in general tend to get a little bit more time. Let's see. The second part of her question was, it sounds like you feel like it's more important that employees' advocate relationship to the nonprofit is strong and they can advocate for the organization. Is that the correct takeaway? Yes, that is absolutely. I have had employee advocates come in who've come in and they have no idea what the organization is. It's just an organization that their sister's best friend's dog's last owner, who used to live on a farm that was owned by somebody else's organization has. And they come in and they don't know what the organization does. They can't talk to me about the organization. There's no elevator pitch. So if you do have somebody come in, please make sure that it's somebody who has benefited. The closer the beneficiary, if they or their family have benefited from the organization, the better the advocate is. As far as getting slides, Amy, we'll have to talk about how we can do that.
Yes. What I can do is, if it's okay with you, to share the slides, which I assume it is. So yeah. What I'll do is include the slides or a link to the slides in addition to the recording. The recording started. I have to tell you, the bad news is that I started the recording about 10 minutes into the actual live event. So the first part of it is it kind of jumps in. So I apologize for that, my error. But I will send later today via email the recording of the entire event as well as the actual slides. Did you see this question from Patty Rose?
I do. The question is about whether it's helpful to prepackage sponsor benefits for different levels of support. For an initial level kind of a dating stage or first step stage, I think that might be okay. I don't think it's necessarily beneficial, but if that's the way you do it, I think it's okay. We kind of like to fancy ourselves as being mavericks and being new and different to everybody else, and we're working with a new organization in a new way, and so having as we are various different levels, if we're just one part of a level, I think that's not as it's not as compelling, but it's okay. I would not do that as far when you get to the proposal stage, but as far as the initial stages, that would be okay, I think. And then and then I guess the rest of her comment is about how, you know, getting more publicly visible benefits. Yeah, and that's one thing that is, I mean, we frankly, the Safeway Foundation is allowed to exist under the auspices of Safeway because, and given all the resources from Safeway, because of the loyalty and the work that we can do in the community. So the more credit we can get for that, the better off we are.
There are, I'm going to give, let's see, we need to be wrapping this up actually. So what I'd like to do right now, if anybody has an extra question, and Patty Rose, you're welcome. She just said thank you. So thank you. Thank you, Christy. Thank you, all of you. This was a really large meeting, and I encourage you when you leave the meeting, before you leave, don't leave yet, but when you do, you will, a survey will pop up, and if you had some issues with technology that wasn't just me, feel free, please explain. I'm evaluating which platform to use, so that's very helpful for us to continue to give you guys bring you great content and resources. Christy, thank you. I love the entire analogy between, the courting a corporate funder and how it really is. It's a relationship, and you guys are theoretically you're in it for the long haul, and I think that's what you really bring out and have really come across sharing to everybody is that it's a long-term relationship. It's not just a hot date, and there should be a mutual benefit. So I think I know you have. You've given us some really incredible tips to walk away with, the do's and the don'ts, and I really do appreciate that. Certainly, you're going to all receive an email a little bit later, and it will have the link to the recording, and I'll include the slides. Christy's contact information will be in there as well, so certainly if you have questions, and if you have nuptials to announce and you want to invite her or have her come as your, be the maid of honor for the nuptials, she would love to hear about that. With that, I'm going to say thank you and goodbye, and I'm going to leave it to you, Christy, for closing remarks.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you so much for having me. This has been a great, and I appreciate you all taking this in the spirit in which it's intended. And also, if there are any questions, you can find my my email information is on the SafewayFoundation.org. So it's SafewayFoundation.org website under Contact Us. My email is at the top. Feel free to email me with any questions you have or any other comments or thoughts that you might have. I appreciate all of your time.
Thank you all. Have a great day. Talk to you soon.